So, ladies and gentlemen, over the last 2 weeks we've been following the theme of mission in our morning worship. And we've had speakers from the Leprosy Mission and Comfort International. And today we're hearing about work much closer to home with the work of Edinburgh Street Pastors, an organisation right on our own doorstep. And we already have a number of members and friends volunteering for this charity. So it's going to be really good to have more insight into what they do. And this will help us in our support and prayers for them in the tasks that they have undertaken willingly as part of their Christian service. And we're delighted to have Gerard McIvor with us this morning. And as we heard earlier, Gerard's the coordinator of the Teams for Street Pastors who organises the people and supports the teams which go out regularly to support people in the streets of the city centre who need it. And Gerard worships, we won't hold this against him, down at St Patrick's in the Cowgate, so that's good background to have for him. And Gerard was asked to choose the readings for today, so we have two that he's selected to express the motivation and the background behind street pastors. And both our readings come from the New Testament, and both will be very familiar to you, and they're both on the theme of love. And the first is from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, which presents the Christian ideal of loving each other as God loves us unconditionally. And the second is a story that Jesus told in Matthew's Gospel, and it's got a bit more challenge and bite to it, and it's the call to practical ways to live out this love for others in the world around us. So before I invite Gerard up to speak, Mary is going to lead us in our readings this morning. So Mary.
If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And now from Matthew chapter 25. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Mary. I'll invite Gerard up and before he shares his thoughts with us this morning, we'll say a prayer for him. You want to come up at the front here, Gerard. Let's pray. Holy Spirit, we ask for your presence in our hearts and minds this morning as Gerard introduces us to the practical work of Edinburgh street pastors and the work of our Christian brothers and sisters who volunteer with them. So we ask, Lord, that you bless him in all his words this morning and open our hearts to respond to this call to service as best we can. Amen.
Well, thank you for welcoming me to Liberton Kirk today, to allow me to give a presentation on the work of Edinburgh street pastors. And before I start my short talk, I'd just like to show you a 5-minute video, promotional video made a couple of years ago. So, are you ready to?
On the streets. So it was a perfect match for me, an opportunity to share my faith.
I've always had a heart for the homeless, and I've always wanted to be able to do more to help them.
Sitting on a hilltop, a life that can't be hidden or snuffed out. No one lights a lamp, then puts it under a basket. A lamp is on a stand for all to see. So you just shine in the night.
We patrol in the same areas of the city each time, Prince Street, George Street, the Cowgate, Grassmarket, and sometimes up to Tollcross as well.
Let the love of Christ shine bright in this city. Out on the streets tonight, there are people walking.
We also come across our city regulars, so folks who are there on for weekends away or on holiday, and a lot of that is just checking, having chats about what they're doing in Edinburgh. The rugby season's always a good one because lots of rugby fans.
On them, so you just shine in the night.
There was a young girl one evening, and she was a bit lost, slightly confused, and she actually came to ask me for directions. We got to talking. She obviously asked me, what I do, and I explained about street pastors, and I shared some of my testimony with her. And she said that she'd always believed in God, but that she'd been experiencing a lot of peer pressure, particularly from the hostel where she'd been living. So she had stopped going to church, and she'd stopped praying in particular. So I actually prayed with her in that moment, and she said she felt really encouraged, and that she wasn't going to worry about what other people thought, that she believed that God existed, and she was going to start going back to church and start praying again as well.
Christ be shown for all to see. So you just shine in the night.
We were out one Saturday night in June, and we were walking over Waverley Bridge, and we came across this guy in a bright orange day-glow jacket, and I recognised him. I said, "You're Billy, aren't you?" He said, "Yes." And he said, I said, "You were on the streets a few months ago, weren't you?" He had been unemployed and homeless in Princes Street, and a couple of street pastors had prayed with him 3 months before. He said that 2 days later, the council offered him a flat, and he now has a job working in Waverley Station. That just goes to show you the power of prayer.
Be shown for all to see. So you just shine.
Many people ask us, can I become a street pastor too?
it's just such a privilege to be a street pastor, to wear the uniform, and people know because we're in the uniform that we're being police checked and we're safe people. And so it's just great.
That life is still worth living. Go and give her fresh hope and a smile. So you just shine in the night. Let the light of Christ be shown for all to see. So you just shine in the night. Let the love of Christ shine bright in this city. So you just shine in the night. Let the light of Christ be shown for all to see. So you just shine in the night. Let the love of Christ shine bright in this city.
So, what Edinburgh Street Parties are, we're groups of Christians who go out on in teams between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. on Friday nights and Saturday, and one Saturday per month. So we do have one team which is actually early evening between 7 and 11, and we might be forming another team soon. So we have various hours. So we literally go out into the darkness of the city to be salt and light to the people we meet. Now, I don't just mean the darkness in a literal sense, but there's also a spiritual darkness in Edinburgh. If anyone has been out on the streets late at night, you'd actually see that, especially down around the Cowgate and Grass Market, sort of 3 o'clock in the morning. So what type of people we meet? We meet homeless people begging, whose lives are ravished by poverty and addiction. So most of the homeless people on the street will have some sort of addiction or some mental health issue, so we meet them. We also meet young people who are trying to find solace and comfort in drinking, binge drinking, and using party drugs. You sometimes see men and women get into violent fights as a result of overindulging alcohol, and sometimes certain areas you'll see men going to strip clubs in the West End, the West Bow area. So basically you meet people that are without a shepherd. You heard in the song that the people without a shepherd. So if you look up the meaning of the word pastor in the Bible commentary or encyclopedia, what it's defined as is a helper or feeder of the sheep. And this is what Edinburgh Street Pastors are. So we're there basically to help in a practical sense and to help people find spiritual food by drawing them close to Christ, who is ultimately their ultimate shepherd. So we're really like spiritual shepherds to go out to the street at night to draw folk closer to Christ, demonstrating his love and sharing the good news about him when it's appropriate. So we don't go out as overt evangelists saying you must believe and repent, but we go out showing God's love on the streets, and people will see the badge street pastors and they'll say, street pastors, what do they do? And then we'll say we're a group of Christians from different denominations, and we go out sharing the love of Jesus. Would you like to know more? So what we do, we'll hand them a gospel, or we'll hand them a try praying booklet. I don't know whether David Hill is here today. Has anyone seen him? But he comes to this church. We'll hand him a try praying booklet, and we'll just share our the gospel with them. Sometimes often we'll hand out lollipops, and lollipops can be used as, for example, to diffuse a potentially violent situation, or we'll give them to some of the bouncers, the doormen on the clubs that we see. So I remember a year ago I was down in the grass market, and I handed a lollipop to this doorman, and he said, "Oh, the street pastors, what are they?" And I said, "What we did." And I said, "Oh, do you have a faith?" He said, "No, but my grandmother was a Protestant." So you're getting to the stage now where you're 2 generations, maybe even 3, that are without having been brought up with Christianity. So we're there kind of to be like shepherds for them. So Street Pastors were founded 22 years ago in London by Reverend Les Isaac, who's the CEO of Ascension Trust, which is the body which manages Street Pastors. And he is a black man from Jamaica. He came to London in the 60s, and he basically got into trouble with gangs and stuff like that. He ended up going into a church one day, and a long story was he eventually became a Christian, and he saw there was a need for, there was a lot of violence and even that time gangs on the street, and he saw that there was a need to help them. So it was basically as a Christian response to that, and he formed a team of street pastors that went out in June 2003 in an area of London known as Brixton, South London, and soon it spread to other areas of London such as Lewisham and Hackney, where there was crime, and eventually it spread all over the UK. So now there's more than 12,000 street pastors going out every Friday and Saturday in different areas of the UK. So it came to 270 areas of the UK, in fact, and there's a further 6,000 people that volunteer in prayer and management committees. So Edinburgh street pastors came to Scotland in 2007 to Aberdeen, and that's Aberdeen is the largest, one of the largest street pastors now. They've actually got extra funding from their council because they have a bus which goes out, and it's like a safe space where people who've had a few drinks can go in, sober up, and they've got money from the council. So we're looking for that, but funding is one of the things that we always have problems with in such charities. It started in Edinburgh in June 2009, and I'm the coordinator, but I also serve, I've been the coordinator since January, but I'm also been a street pastor for 7 years, and we have 29 teams in 29 towns and cities in Scotland. In Edinburgh, there's currently around 50 street pastors, and our teams patrol once a month. So we go out in teams of minimum of 3. Sometimes if you get 6 people going out, you can go out in 2 sub-teams. One team will go to the city centre, Princess Street, George Street. The other team will go to Grassmarket. And we can't be established in the city without the approval of the police and the council and a group of churches. So basically that's known as the Urban Trinity. So the police, council and group of churches would be the Urban Trinity. So we have training for volunteers twice a year, our training in the autumn and the spring. We've next got training coming up on the 24th of October, and it consists of doing 10 different modules. So you'll study things like roles and responsibilities, good news, safeguarding, mental health, listening skills, police, drugs and alcohol awareness, where the police will actually bring off live samples of drugs. You can't try them, but you just have to look at them in packets. So, and that's coming up in October. Then we have another training which comes up in spring. So it's compulsory for volunteers. And also the volunteers have to be checked, have to be PVG checked. So we do a PVG check on them, and have to have references from the pastor. So basically all our volunteers are Christians, and we look for a record of them being with the church for at least 1 year prior to starting training. So training's delivered by a range of experts, including psychiatrists, policemen with expertise in drugs, trained counsellors, youth workers, child protection experts, and other things. So what's it like to be a street pastor? I've been a street pastor for the past 6 years, and it's one of the most rewarding things that I do in my Christian life. So the passage you saw in Matthew 25, that inspired me to go out onto the streets to become a street pastor, because I was nominal, going to church every week, and I thought, well, I wanted to do something what Jesus actually did himself, and most of Jesus' ministry, the vast majority of it was out on the streets. It wasn't in the synagogues or the temples, it was out on the streets. And that's what inspired me to become a street pastor, to actually put my faith into action, to actually do something practical there. So we're there to give both practical and spiritual support, and we carry backpacks with equipment and supplies in them. So I'll just show you some of the things that we carry. So this is one of our bags. So if we're going out, say, with a team of 3, we'll have 2 people carry the bags, and we'll have in here a flask of tea. 1 bag will carry coffee or soup if it's in the winter. So we hand that out to people, and there's cups for the tea. We also hand out blankets. Make sure we take the label off before we give them, because it has been known that some of the people will sell them on. So make sure we take the label off. Take that. So these blankets, they're small ones from IKEA because larger ones won't fit in. So we give them to some of the homeless people on the street. Or if there's a lone female, for example, she's lost her phone and she hasn't got a coat, we'll put that on. We also carry hats. We always accept donation of hats. A lot of the people who donate, you can tell they're women, donate nice bright colours, and some of the guys on the street won't wear a red hat. So if you've got any black hats, that would be good. Socks and gloves. The famous flip-flops, and these are street pasted branded, so if somebody wakes up the next day and they say, oh, who helped me last night? It was street passers, so they can look us up on Facebook. What else? Carry water, which is very important for hydrating people if they've taken alcohol or party drugs, and also helps to sober people up as well as coffee. We hand out Bibles, not to everybody, but we hand out the Bible if we start getting into a spiritual conversation about somebody, and we have had some very interesting spiritual conversations. There seems to be a lot of young people now that are actually quite open to the gospel, whereas maybe before they wouldn't be. Especially since COVID, they can see what's going on in the world, they're questioning things, and they're actually open to the gospel. And a story I want to tell you that about a year ago, I was in, what we do when we meet new street passers, we interview them over a coffee in a neutral space. So we went, there's a coffee shop across from us in the Pleasant. I was going to meet this guy at 11 o'clock, and it was 11:30, didn't turn up, so I had my coffee and left. But while I was there, there were these two girls who were speaking, and they was talking. My ears pricked up. They were talking about the situation in Israel, the Palestinians, the Jews, and religion and faith. And they said, "Well, I'm not so sure about faith and all that stuff." So I thought, well, I've got to do something. So when I went back across the road, I got one of these Gospels of John, 2 of them, one each, and I said, "Sorry, excuse me. I hope you don't mind, but I'm a Christian, and I overheard your conversation here. Would you like to take one of these Gospels each?" And rather than, maybe you might expect they might be saying, what are you doing? You know, you listen to my conversation. Both their faces lit up, and they said, "Oh, thank you very much." So even that way, outside of actually being on the streets, you could see that. These two girls were probably about 20, 21. They were university students, and they maybe never heard that before. I don't know. We don't know. Another thing, try praying book. We hand those out. That's a 7-day prayer program. You probably know David Hill has spoken here about that, and that's very useful. It's advertised around Easter on the buses in Edinburgh. The Gospel of Mark is another one we hand out, and the infamous lollipops. So they give these to somebody that can diffuse a situation. You can start up a conversation. It's a way to just give it to somebody in the street. "Oh, would you like lollipop?" And say, "Oh yes, who are you?" And they know when they say, when you've got street passes on you, you know your street passes. And what else do we have here? First aid kit. You saw you saw the lady doing first aid. Those two, the couple that you saw in the video doing the first aid, they are Ferry and Habib, and they've now left street passes because they've gone to live in northern Cyprus as Christian missionaries for Muslims that are there. They both are ex-Muslims from Iran. They've got very interesting stories how they escaped from Iran back in the 80s when the Islamic regime was set up. So they're real witnesses, and they've sold up their business and their house in Edinburgh. They live around here somewhere, I think, and they've gone over to Cyprus to do that work. What else we have? These cards. These are cards are made up, and they've got all useful phone numbers for homeless people. So they got numbers, for example, the Bethany Christian Trust, where they can get food, like 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, the caravan. They've also got other places they can get food. Carruthers Christian Centre on a Sunday morning, where they can stay overnight. So in the winter, the Bethany Christian Trust have a homeless hub. They usually convert the hub hotel opposite Haymarket into a homeless space, basically, and they can go and stay there. It usually opens at the beginning of October. Also, where they can get help for homeless with a place called Streetworks, which can help them with permanent accommodation for the council and that. And also, more important, freedom from addictions. If they want to come off drugs and drinks, there is a phone number for them there. So a very useful thing. And biscuits as well. A lot of people like biscuits, and a lot of people on the street, they really crave sugar. So the tea that we have is about 3 or 4 spoonfuls of sugar per cup. So I was wondering why we go through so much sugar. Tissues, and there's other things there. So We carry a lot of things around with us. Right. So the other thing we do is we collect bottles off the street. So sometimes we collect 25 or 30 bottles from the street. So you might want to know, why do we collect bottles? Glass bottles, of course, because they can, if someone can fall on them, injure themselves, or they can be used as weapons. They can be quite sharp, worse than a knife. So we carry bottles, take bottles off the street. We also help take pressure off the emergency services, because we can support vulnerable people. So we can help with first aid for the non-serious cases. Also, we do sometimes get thanks from people. Like in February this year, we were walking down North Bridges, and then one of our team, saw that there was a woman just on the top of Coburn Street in the Royal Mile, that she'd fallen. She wasn't homeless. She was just a middle-aged lady, say mid-50s to early 60s, and she was out there on a night out with her friends. She was from Fife, and she fell. She injured her shoulder and her knee, and she couldn't really stand. So we went up there, and we managed to marshal a taxi in. We took the bollards out of the way, marshaled a taxi in, and we basically just had a quick look at her knee, make sure she was okay, and then we helped her into the taxi, and then she went down into to Waverley Station and got back to Leven. And then about a week later, we got an email from her thanking us. So it was really, really nice to appreciate that. So what do we do? We many people are. There was actually an anecdotal perception that there is a reduction in crime when we're on the streets. We have a safe presence on the streets, and we change the dynamics of the city in a practical sense, but also change it in a spiritual sense as well. So we also break down people's misconceptions of what Christians are like. So they see us, so we're just ordinary people out there to help. We're non-judgmental and offer care, compassion and grace to people when they're the most vulnerable. So we seek to be the hands and feet of Jesus on the streets, and we communicate the good news of Jesus in both word and deed. So we often get to pray with people and share our faith with those who desire to know more about Jesus. We find when we're on the street that it's the homeless people are the ones that seem to have the faith. They will allow you to pray with them because they've got nothing, but they have God in their lives. So that's quite an eye-opener for me, that they are the ones. 95% of homeless people will allow you to pray with them, so that's good. And when you do pray, sometimes you'll see them, they will break down in tears, or they've been very moved by the prayer, so you've helped them there. So we also have partnerships with, as well as the police and the City of Edinburgh Council, the CCTV unit, quite important. So the CCTV unit, you might like to know there's more than 450 cameras around Edinburgh at the moment, and there's plans to double or triple those, but to keep us safe. And we did a very interesting visit this year to City Chambers. In the basement, they have the CCTV, and they've got all these screens, and they could replay incidents. There was a guy that was knocked off his motorbike by a car, and stuff like that. They can replay all that. But we have used them, and one example is when we were a few months ago. Our team was in George Street outside the Assembly Rooms, and there was it looked like there was an event had just finished, and it was nearly all females that had been there, young females about in their 20s that had a few drinks. And then there was a car parked outside with two suspicious-looking men in it. And so I said, well, they weren't doing anything wrong, so we couldn't call the police, but I phoned up CCTV and gave them the registration. They could zoom in on the car. I just said, keep an eye on these two guys. They look like they're up to no good. They shouldn't be here. So we don't know, we might have been preventing something before it even happened. So what are our targets moving forward? So we would like to partner with more churches and really value the opportunity to receive prayer support, financial support, and recruit new volunteers from amongst different churches. Finances have been quite difficult. We used to get a lot of funding from grant funds, and in recent years these have been drying up because there's less and less pots of money, but more and more people asking for them. So this year I've managed to contact some Christian philanthropists, large businesses such as Sir Brian Souter, who runs Stagecoach. His sister Anne Gloag have given us some money, and also McDonald Hotels, and I did contact Sir Tom Farmer, but unfortunately it was in the year that the week that he passed away. So, but I'm still going to contact the organisation that he is. So these have been quite good, and I think that's the way it used to go many years ago. There were maybe 100 years ago. There were a lot more Christian philanthropists out there, and depending on the government and stuff like that. So, we also would like to increase our volunteer base from 50 to 70 in the next 2 years. It is a big ask. It's been quite hard since the pandemic, especially to find volunteers, not just in Christian organisations, but every organisation. I think the dynamics have changed. People want, they're not, maybe they don't want to go out at night, or they don't feel the need for it. But it's quite hard to get volunteers. But we would like to get another 20 volunteers in the next 2 years, and to create another, this Saturday team, and the one that's missing, and possibly even a team of rail pastors. Now, rail pastors are a spin-off of street pastors. They wear different colour uniforms. Actually, someone did ask me once in this, did I work for ScotRail? And I said no. But they wear different colour uniforms, and rail pastors go out to the street. They don't go out to the street, they go onto the railway between sort of late afternoon to early evening, say 4 till 9 p.m. They go around talking to people on the platforms, on the trains, and the purpose of that is basically suicide prevention, which is a big problem on the railway. So they have them, it's another area of street pastors. So we'd like to reach more areas of the city simultaneously by increasing the size of our teams as well. So our ultimate goal is that more people would be touched by God's love and the good news of his grace, and the desire is to bring that the city would be brought closer to Jesus. So if any of you are interested in volunteering with us, please speak to me, or you may know one or two of the volunteers here who are already street pastors. And if you'd like to become a donor or friend of street pastors, let me know. I've got some information that I can give you afterwards. And we also have a QR code as well, which I can place if you'd like to scan, and it takes us to our donate page. So I'll be here if there's any questions afterwards, and I will see you on the way out of the church. So thank you for listening to my presentation.